We are finally returning to Yokai Peaks, but this time we're looking at the endgame for both Mage and Warrior. It's been a long time coming, and now, 9 months to the day of this dungeon being released, I will show you just how effortlessly you can play through this dungeon now, and show my current maxed out sets for both Mage and Warrior. Now, getting those sets as good as they are wasn't the easiest thing to do. Took at least a run or two. 1,000. So I'm just going to let these runs speak for themselves, because I don't really think there's much that needs commentating on for these runs specifically, other than the fact that I'm trying to beat the dungeon as quickly as possible. And that's mostly the reason why I have absolutely no regard for dodging anything, because dodging equals slowing down. What I will do is a quick review of Yokai Peaks, since I never really did that since the first impressions video. The map is easily top 3, of course, if not top 1. Most of the mobs are good, animations are mostly good. The map is long, but very nice to look at. XP might be a little short of expectations, but it is what it is. Bosses have some flaws, but are ultimately some of the best in the game. Tatsu is very annoying to fight if you're weak and just entering the dungeon. Sangor is just very annoying, period. Leonaru is a solid boss, and him using the arena to fight you with is a nice touch. Sarugami is visually the most intimidating and badass looking boss possibly in the entire game, and gets let down by how painfully easy he is. His only dangerous attack is his slamming attack, where he slaps the floor a few times and a bunch of red garbage appears everywhere. But other than that, he's extremely easy. And his second phase, where he's mobile, is absolutely pathetic. You have 35 hours to respond to him charging towards you. And even if you don't somehow dodge the attack, like if you accidentally fell asleep at your keyboard for a moment, because that's the only way you're getting hit by it, the chance of you actually dying from it is lower than you'd think. If any boss needs to be made harder, it's Sarugami. He's still a great final boss, though. And I couldn't just help but mention the drops. Who doesn't enjoy getting a Seishin Cleaver half the time you complete the dungeon? Or how about the great abilities this dungeon provides, like Yokai Transformation, which as of the time of this recording doesn't even work. Or how about Hands of Death, the ability with a lifetime cooldown length. So yeah, the dungeon is very good out of 10. In the future, I might make a tier list video of the dungeons, if that's something people would actually want to watch, that is. And now we're getting to the end of the mage run here, which was pretty fast. Could have been faster. And then we have warriors, which, I'm sorry, still don't quite compete with mages. The gap is much closer now than it used to be, mostly thanks to rings, but mage is still the clear favorite. The difference is less obvious if you're playing with a bunch of people, but if you're playing solo, you will notice a difference. The damage is there, but it's harder to use warrior simply because of their abilities. They have less range, they're not as straightforward with some of their attacks, and it's easier to die trying to use them. You can still succeed with them, nonetheless, as this run will clearly show you. Honestly, there might not be a difference at all in the run duration if my warrior was just a tiddlywink stronger. I will now spend the warrior session going over the recent poll questions, voting results, and my opinions on them. Are you enjoying the new boss raids content? I think this goes without saying that the boss raids have been a net positive and give you something else to do. This updates boss raids and makes it not just a level 130 thing anymore, which is good. And the unique drop you get from them, the rings, are good. Kind of too good, but we'll get to that shortly. What is your favorite part about the new boss raids? Really, any answer is fitting except playing with large groups, because now for the first time we have a crumb of unique daily content, and from the sounds of it, there will be a lot more very soon. Obviously, the new rings was going to win the vote, because who doesn't want to be stronger? How do you feel about the difficulty of Goliath? Well, once you learn how to fight him and have the gear you need, he's pretty easy. But for all intents and purposes, his difficulty feels appropriate, and I mostly agree with this vote as well. Now with the new rings, do you think we should revisit the difficulty level of Yokai Peaks to make it more challenging? I said yes, and most people did not agree with me. Now obviously this vote will be skewed depending on how strong you are. I bet a lot more level 230s voted for yes than 210s, for example. But my opinion is this. Even before the rings were added, and especially before Greg's weapons were added, Yokai Peaks being too easy was already debatable. Now it's just straight up in your face too easy. Even if you have mediocre rings and the highest craftable legend from Greg, Yokai Peaks becomes mostly a walking simulator. Do you think one-shotting mobs was possible in any recent dungeon leading up to Yokai Peaks? Because I can tell you right now, it wasn't. At least not solo. The rings solved the problem of the harder dungeons, so now they don't need to be nerfed. But now it made the already easy Yokai Peaks even easier. You can beat Yokai Peaks on Nightmare with Gilded Skies gear. That should not be possible. Would you be interested in seeing a season-style mechanic in Dungeon Quest, where you would create a brand new seasonal character with faster leveling, unique themes, ways to play, and receive unique season rewards? This is a lot more of a subjective thing, but to say the least, it would not be my main priority in the slightest while playing this game. And last but not least, I will show you a duo of Yokai Peaks. In this particular run, we have speed potions on to see just how fast we could finish the dungeon, and the answer is pretty damn fast. Now, back when this dungeon first came out and everybody was significantly weaker, running a duo was substantially better than running solo. Now it's just slightly better, since you can get much stronger now. Still fun showing the slightly different strategies for running a duo, and having to sync with each other so you don't make any mistakes. Because it's much easier to mess up a perfect run when there's 2 players versus 1 player, since there's twice as many chances to slip up and miss a shot. Or you could accidentally cause them to take damage and die, for instance. Or you could simply not be keeping up with the other person, so your attacks won't be in sync. So your run times will generally vary more as a duo, but ultimately they'll be faster. With the newly added rings and craftable legends recently, me and Kirby here have drastically decreased our run times, and have been getting new records fairly regularly. The rings, especially with health regen, are the biggest lifesavers, as it's pretty easy to get hit when you're just trying to haul ass as quickly as possible through the dungeon. When your primary objective is how fast you can complete the dungeon, slowing down to dodge something is not something you want to do. And now with the rings, we don't have to. So now we can just stroll through the dungeon and eat the occasional attack or two and not really have to think about it. So over the past few months, we have been attempting to develop the fastest possible runs ever as a duo, and never got a run that was perfect enough to upload. And the clip I'm showing you now is not perfect either, but it is pretty close to the fastest you could get. I'd imagine you could trim off a solid 10 seconds off of this run if you're literally 2 of the strongest players in this game. However, this is still an extremely solid run. Of course, things will likely end up changing in the coming months like they always do, and make these runs completely obsolete. Either new gear or abilities will come out, or God forbid they make Yokai Peaks harder. This is the current endgame in Dungeon Quest. Well, at least as of July 13th, 2024, it is. If you've made it this far into the video and you're satisfied with the word salad you just received from me, why not subscribe? You'll telepathically make me smile if you do. And with that, I thank you for watching this episode of Block A Rambles while you watch gameplay. And I hope to see you again soon. If my computer doesn't explode.